Pilgrim continued. They feared a wave swamping the ship and dashing it to pieces. They feared broken masts and yards. They feared the wave that would lift the ship at one end, but not the other, leaving one half of her supported by water and the other half sticking out into the air. She was a ship and not a bridge, built to be cradled and not suspended. This unsupported weight could well crack her in half. To avoid such structural stress, the helmsman would turn the ship to take the waves broadside. But the broadside pounding put a lot of pressure against the beams that arched upon the main deck and kept the hull from breaking inward. One beam oak half a foot or more thick warped and bowed as it took punch after punch from thousands of tons of water. The passengers didn't know much about ships, but they knew that beams weren't supposed to warp. The dying. On Wednesday, December the 20th, or December 30th in the modern calendar, several men went ashore to scout around for the best place to settle. The weather gave them a New England welcome. Cold winds sliced at them, and bone-chilling rain dug into their clothes. They were the only atmosphere for which the New Englanders should reserve the word miserable. Despite the weather, they hunkered down, built some kind of lean-to or windbreaker. Maybe got a fire, maybe they didn't. They sent the shallop back to the ship with instructions to bring more people in the morning so that they could begin building. But during the night, the weather got worse. The landing parties spent the night in the wind and the rain, hoping that come morning, the shallop would return with food, tools, and help. But December the 21st was as bad as December the 20th. Not until 11 o'clock that morning did the shallop manage to go into the shore with some food. It may also have carried the body of Richard Brittenridge, who had just died. We don't know whether he is married or whether he had children. No one on the Mayflower had shared his name. We don't know how old he was or why he wanted to move to America. He signed the Planters Association agreement, and 6 months later had passed away. 6 weeks later he passed away. We don't know where they buried him, except it was probably in a shallow, unmarked grave of sand. Wind kept the shallop on shore for the second night of cold, wet misery. Friday, December 22, dawned as nasty as the 2 days before. Again the shallop would not sail. The people on shore were stuck there. The people bound unable to do more than hold on. Mary Allerton, wife of Isaac, mother of Bartholomew, you remember, and Mary went into labor. She had buried an unnamed child before they left, and now as the Mayflower rocked on the waves and swung around on her anchor, Mrs. Allerton delivered another child, a son, but again without life. Saturday, December 23rd, all who went ashore to fell and drag trees to be sawed up into timber and lumber for building. Sunday, December 24th, on this day, Solomon Power, stepson of the scornful Christopher Martin, former governor of the Mayflower, died. The other rested for the Sabbath, but not completely. Savages was in the forest, ignorant of the day, hooted and howled. The Christians prepared to repel an assault, but nothing came out of the dark of the woods beside the ferocious ululations. Monday, December 25, all men worked felling trees, sawing them into sections and planks, carrying them out of the forest. They collected fresh water for the ship. Again howls from the woods sent them scurrying for muskets, but again no attack. 20 men stayed on shore that night. Those on board shared a bit of the dwindling supplies of beer. the separatists made no celebration for the birth of their Savior. To do so would have been presumptuous, adulterous, payable sacrilege, and no way biblical. For the good book makes no mention of parties for the birthday of God's Son. It didn't even say what day that is. The beer was probably a Christmas gesture of Master Jones. The separatists would have accepted it not in celebration or communion, but simply because it was good. Those on shore slept in a storm of wind and rain without benefit of beer. Tuesday, December the 26th, rain, wind, cold. Wednesday, December 27th, back to work. Thursday, December 28th, they assumed a street running east and west from the beach to the hill, where they called the mount that rose 120 feet above sea level. They planned a highway that runs south from the street to a clear, shallow brook. The streets and the highway would lead to 3 gates in the Palestine side that would surround the town. Eventually, the governor's house would stand at the only intersection in town. Each house got a lot half a pole wide and 3 in length, 8 feet 3 inches by 49 feet 6 inches for each person in the household. Each lot would have its own garden and a fence of sharpened poles. To expedite the building of a shelter, men with no wives were assigned to homes of families. The first living quarters on land wouldn't be much roomer than the gun deck of the Mayflower. They wanted this business out of the way, shelter built as soon as possible, because despite the grace of God, they were not surviving well. The journalist wrote that they were growing ill with cold, for our former discoveries, expeditioners in frost and snow and the wading of Cape Cod, had brought much sickness among them, which increased so every day more and more, and after was the cause of many deaths. In other words, the cold was killing them. Friday, December 29, rainy, wind, and cold. Saturday, December 30, rainy, windy, cold. In the distance, they saw smoke. Monday, January the 1st, the journalist complains that because of the shallow harbor, the Mayflower must stay a 1.5 miles from shore. Trips in the shallop was hindered by the tides. The journalist made no note of the new year because it was still almost 3 months away. By their calendar, 1621 starts on the Feast of the Assumption, March 25. Wednesday, January the 3rd, people gather thrashed around cornfields, see the smoke of great fires in the distance. They see no savages, but they know that they're out there and they're burning something. Thursday, January the 4th, Miles Standish and a contingent of 4 or 5 men go to look for the fires in the Indians. They find houses, but they have not been lately inhabited. They shoot an eagle, bring it home for dinner. It tastes just like mutton. Friday, January the 5th, a sailor finds a live herring on the beach. The sailor gives the fish to Master Jones for his supper. The passengers are given nothing but hope. Maybe a season of fish is arriving. The herring is the second fish anyone has caught in 2 months. The other was a cod. The problem, no small fish hooks. Saturday, January the 6th, Christopher Martin takes ill on board the ship. Sunday, January 7th, they rest. Christopher Martin doesn't look good. No doubt he was thinking about his stepson who died just 2 weeks ago. Not to mention poor Billy Button, little Jasper Moore, James Shilton, and Robert Betteridge, all found dead in their beds just a few feet away where Martin lies. He no doubt saw them lifted from the ship and lowered to the chapel. rowed to the shore and buried in the sand. Governor Carver comes back from shore to speak with Martin about his will. Monday, January 6th, the day starts off sunny. Master Jones takes a shovel in search of fish. They don't get far before they hit a storm, but they kill 3 large seals and an excellent good cod, giving them hope that fish is coming to season. They need it. Food is short, and they're running out of beer. On this day, Captain Martin finds his stepson into the hereafter, follows his stepson into the hereafter, and a shallow grave in the sand. He leaves his wife Mary, but not for very long. From shore, good news. Young Francis Billington, the same young fool who shot off a musket next to the powder keg in a small cabin on the most important ship in the world, unwittingly ancestor of President James Garfield, has redeemed himself. He has climbed a hill, and there he climbed a tree. From there he cast his eyes to the west, where he spotted the Pacific Ocean, or some other great sea. Has the elusive Northwest Passage been found? In need of expert confirmation, he takes a shipmate to verify. The Great Sea, it turns out, consists of 2 lakes, one 5 or 6 miles around, the other about half that size. A brook drained the larger lake, the same town brook that ran through Plymouth and past a certain big rock on the beach. The lakes weren't as good as the Pacific Ocean, but they were a fine source of fresh water and lots of fish and waterfowl. They came to name one of the lakes Fresh Lake, but later it became known as Billington Sea. The smaller is called Little Pond. This will be continued.